Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the B2B Rebellion. Really happy to have with me here today Morgan J. Ingram. Morgan and myself have been speaking over the past couple of months, almost I'd say at this point, and we've already had Morgan on for one of our webinars. And like his style has been really, really cool. Especially on the webinar, it was very conversational. Like there was a lot of back and forth banter between himself and our guests on the webinar. It went really well, you know. And myself and Morgan think very similarly alike. It's really interesting to like pick each other's brains a little bit, especially around what's happening with the new LinkedIn algorithms and so on. Morgan works with John Barrow's sales, so he's a sales trainer there. But Morgan also comes from a background of sales himself. Having been in tech sales, so he worked with a company called Terminus. Terminus being like the founders of account-based marketing, I would say. I've worked with Terminus in the past myself back in 2015 when nobody else was really talking about account-based marketing apart from Terminus. And the great thing, and this is something that I really push for when we have guests on this show, is, you know, if somebody is a sales trainer, they should really have done it themselves and understand the struggles of being in sales, especially in tech sales where things can change real quick. Yep. Morgan, welcome, mate. It's really great to have you.
Happy to be here.
Good. So tell us, I've given you a short introduction there, but do you want to put a little bit more meat on the bone there and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're based, what your focus is, and so on?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised. Most people, when they have said they went to Atlanta, they probably have been to the airport. That's maybe probably about it. Maybe you haven't gone to
three times.
The airport. You know, it's a good airport. So my background is I started off as an SDR, cold called to get my job. And from doing an SDR role, that's where I first started into sales. And then 4 months later, I created something called the SDR Chronicles. And that was a YouTube channel that documented my journey. And that's what really elevated brand. So I was one of the first people that started creating content that was in a individual contributor role. Now everyone is, you know, out here now, but I was one of the first to be able to do that on my YouTube channel. And that's something that helped me. The reason I'm telling you all that is because it helped me grow my brand in a very quick way because it was different and unique. And it was interrupted everyone's pattern. And then that got me promoted to SDR manager. And I had 13 reps. So it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of reps. It wasn't a director. I was a manager, right? And like 99% of those people are older than me. So that was a very interesting experience being a manager and having people that reported to you that were older and getting their respect and things of that nature. So that was a little bit different. And then I got founded by John Barrows, which most of you probably know. Essentially, you know, the godfather of sales training. You know, he's been doing it for a hot minute. You know, everybody knows who he is for the most part in SaaS. And so he found me on YouTube, recruited me to get on his team, and I've been on the team for 3 years now. So it's been a very impactful and awesome journey.
Nice. Over those 3 years, how many clients do you reckon you've worked with?
Wow, 100 plus.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Globally too. So it's been cool. I've been to APAC. I've been to EMEA. I've been to the States. And I know you mentioned one piece there is like, what do I do? So day to day is I train clients on prospecting. So top of the funnel, like how do you break into accounts, etc. But what was the question you asked?
No, I was just going to say, like, that's amazing to be part of that and be able to like travel quite a bit, because I know like people, I've spoken with sales leaders and so on that are based out in the US. Typically, you're more or less US focused, but to be able to get that sales experience or to be able to break into those other markets with John Barrows, that must have been super interesting, man. Let's say you've got new customer on board, starting up, for example, an SDR function, or they've got an SDR function that's maybe not doing too well at the moment because it's hard to get connects, for example. Like, what are you telling people? What are the tips you give?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of trainings on LinkedIn prospecting. And here's the thing. We talked about like, hey, here's the pill that I want you to swallow, right? I'm a person that looks at what's going on and then I make situational changes. And that, again, that's just something that I've realized that I can be able to do. Because here's the thing. If you would have asked me like what I would tell a client to do 2 to 3 years ago, I was like, yo, make calls. Like, people are picking up the phone. You're getting connects and you need to be able to convert because most people just don't know how to talk on the phone, right? We've created a whole workshop around it. Now, if you see my content in the past 4 to 5 months, I don't talk a lot about cold calling because I know the connects are lower. I know people aren't doing it as much, right? So I wouldn't tell a client, hey, go make 1,000 calls. That doesn't make sense. So what I've been telling people is go to LinkedIn. If your buyers are on LinkedIn, you should be there because most people are more engaged on LinkedIn because they're not doing anything, right? They're not commuting. They're not going on a plane, right? So they have more time to spend on these social networks. And all those things have increased. I think Netflix consumption has increased, Instagram, link, all those consumption has increased because people, again, are sitting at home. And so I've been doing more on LinkedIn prospecting, LinkedIn videos, LinkedIn voice messages. And I talked to one client, this is crazy, man. They have 70% of their outbound meetings come from LinkedIn. Before it was 30%.
That's insane. 70%.
70% of their outbound meetings come from LinkedIn. So InMails, videos, voice messages, commenting, connecting with buyers. I was blown away. I was like, what? 70%. Crazy.
Man, I mean, look, there's ways of doing it and there's ways of doing it right, I think. Those guys are obviously doing it. And there's a lot of people that are just doing it, right? And very few people, I feel, in any case, with the outreach that I get, that are doing it right. I got one today, and it was a guy who was a web designer, actually, reached out to me. And like, just like a really well thought out and put together InMail. Completely cold InMail. And normally I just like don't even look at cold InMail.
Yeah.
There was something about it that made me click. There was something, I can't remember exactly what was said in the subject that got me interested. I was like, this guy's doing a good job here. I'm going to give him a meeting. Like I was like, this is good. Like, so what tips are you telling, like, that these guys that got 70% of their meetings from outbound on LinkedIn? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, so they're doing a lot of LinkedIn voice messages and LinkedIn videos. Like they're like doing really well on that. They're doing so they're doing what they're doing on their emails, and they're like transferring it over to their InMails. They're finding that just like email reply rates have just been lower, and also the data is getting worse and worse. So a lot of the like great emails that they're writing like get bounced. And so what they're doing is they're just like, okay, well, that didn't work, it got bounced, and they're taking those and they're going to the InMails because that person's on LinkedIn. Like, you're not going to get bounced on LinkedIn because that's that person. So they're taking the emails that are getting bounced and they're doing the InMails there, and then they're just taking the same email format for personalized emails, and then they're doing it through InMails as well. So it's super cool to see.
Absolutely. I mean, so that you mentioned there around the video piece as well. So, like, a lot of people worry about this, right? Like, it's not like, and we spoke about this before. We spoke about it on the webinar a couple of weeks ago. It's like, what tips would you give people to get started on video? I mean, you had a rule. I can't remember what the rule was, but it was like
10, 30, 10.
10, 30, 10.
The form, dude. I didn't get a 10, 30, 10 shirt. Like, it's
man.
It's gotta happen.
You need the thing on the wall behind you. I'm gonna get you like when I have the Leadfeeder thing back here. I get you the 10, 30, 10 thing back there.
I gotta get the 10, 30, 10, man. It's always the biggest takeaway that people have is this formula is 10, 30, 10. And it's cool because like the 10, 30, 10 in itself is how you should be messaging buyers on LinkedIn.
So tell us about the 10, 30, 10. Because we spoke about the webinar, but maybe people didn't see it.
My course, $100 for the 10. No, I'm just kidding.
So the link you'll find just below here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll get my $30, $40 cut out of that, of course, more.
Yeah, exactly. He's and he's affiliate.
Oh man.
All right, so the 10, 30, 10, right? And this has been really helpful. And, when I train clients in multiple regions, one thing I had to understand immediately was, okay, I have my style. However, my style isn't going to work for everyone, and it's definitely not going to work in some regions. So I had to figure out, like, okay, when I deliver it, what's my mind doing? Like, what's the steps I'm taking to deliver this? So then I peeled it back, and this is what I came up with, which was 10, 30, 10. So in the first 10 seconds, your goal is to focus on two things. One is a trigger, right? So the trigger is something you can find on a website or find on a LinkedIn profile. So an example of that would be, hey, they're hiring new sales reps. Or, hey, someone just got promoted. Or maybe they just got a change in leadership. A CRO is coming in, right? So that's the first 10 seconds. Or it could be a persona. So I know, hey, as a CMO, you care about certain things. VP of sales cares about certain things in their day-to-day. Like, you all can write out and figure out what those are. It's different for everybody listening in, but an example of a priority or challenge, if you guys are wondering, is one of the top priorities for enablement leaders right now is teaching their reps on how to effectively communicate to their buyers. And doing that with real business acumen that's sharp and concise, right? So that's an example of the priority. So you take one, or you can take two of those things, right? Either you're gonna do a trigger or you're gonna do a priority. And you always want to say the reason for my video is, right? So that you're confident in it. Then in the 30 seconds is the value prop. So the value prop, if you're wondering what that is, go take your value prop from the cold calls you're doing. Take your value prop from the cold calls and then now insert that in your video. And the last 10 seconds is just a call to action. So what we've seen to be successful in terms of a call to action is a very conversational one where it's like, hey, are you open to learning more? Or are you interested in deeper dialogue? We've seen a lot of success from that as well. So 10, 30, 10, that's how I do about it. And if you can do that, you're going to see some results.
10, 30, 10, man. And there's an extra 10 seconds added onto the end of that, which you'll give away for $1,000, right?
Yeah, exactly. 10, 30, 10, 10. So
$1,000 is all it's going to cost, man. But that's really, really solid advice, because I think people struggle with, like, how long should it be? How often should I do it? You know, what step in my cadence should I do it? Should I do that straight away? And I think that, like, that works anywhere. That works, like, if it's your first push out in a cadence, you're trying to get through to somebody on LinkedIn, you're not having much luck on the phone, whatever, that works at the start. It can work, like, a little bit further down if somebody's gone a little bit quiet on you, you know, because you're just going to know more information about them. You know, you still have to have the trigger, the event, and then also your call to action in there. Like, it's regardless of where you are in the life cycle, you're going to be able to use it. So super interesting, man. And look, that's been, like, probably the best actionable item for people to take away from this, the 10, 30, 10. So I think, well.
And yeah, I think that's it right there. Like, here's the thing. Like, there's so much tips and advice out there, right? Like, there's podcasts galore, right? Yeah. So I would, again, like you said there, Andy, I would take away just the 10, 30, 10. Like, if you follow that framework I gave you and you use that on literally anything, you're going to see more success regardless.
That's amazing advice, man. I think with that, we'll probably, like, leave that as the advice section for today, because 10, 30, 10, because it's so simple. It's so simple. And if people could take that away, I don't want to add anything else to it, because people might, you know, move away from it and not have it front of mind after they watch this. So, like, 10, 30, 10, I think is, like, the perfect way to end this. Where can people find you, Morgan?
So I would say LinkedIn. I'm going to say LinkedIn. That's where you can find me, and I post daily content, but I can't accept any more people, and I'm frustrated. So if you want to connect with me, go on Twitter. Yo, Twitter, I'm bringing Twitter back to life. Twitter is kind of hype. So I'm not mad at Twitter right now. I've been having some good conversations on Twitter. So catch me out there, Morgan J. Ingram.
I'm gonna start getting more involved in Twitter now, man. You've inspired me to get more into Twitter after our conversation last week.
Twitter is engaging, man. I got people replying, you know, people are engaging with me. It's cool, man. I like it.
It's an interesting one, you know. It's like a couple of years ago, people were like, "Oh, Twitter's dead. Twitter's dead." Like, when I started doing Twitter, I started going heavy in Twitter. I started seeing some, like, results, and then was like, forget Twitter. Twitter's dead, man. LinkedIn's where it's at. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't have time for everything, but But, like, I'm gonna have a look again, man. I'm gonna have a look again. But look, Morgan, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you again, mate. And I look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Take it easy, buddy.
All right. Cheers.